Good afternoon. This is Jennifer Wenzel and Landy Miyake with Root Cause Marketing, and we are here to celebrate and honor mentors because it is National Mentoring Month. And today is Thank Your Mentor Day. So, Landy and I are here with Kevin Pratt, who is a SCORE mentor. And if you haven't heard of SCORE, it's the Service Corps of Retired Executives, meaning that everyone who volunteers their time with SCORE is a person who is retired from an executive career or sometimes a high level position in a trade kind of company who has built up lots and lots of and business expertise throughout their lives. And these SCORE mentors are provided to businesses 100% free. So we have been using Kevin's expertise and that of the SCORE organization for what would you say, Landy, about a year now, right?
Yeah, maybe closer to a year and a half because we started working with him very, very early on. So I would say we're probably getting closer to a year and a half.
Yeah. So we wanted to invite Kevin on with us today to say thank you and to talk about mentorship and SCORE mentoring in general. Hi, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm doing well. And to correct one common misperception, which you just stated, that everybody's retired, it turns out that about a third of the SCORE mentors are actually running businesses full time even now, even though they're, quote, retired from something. But everybody is pretty active. And the range of this ages on SCORE mentors is everywhere from, early, or I should say late 20s when some people retire to old people like me who had several businesses, and now I'm in between. So yeah, it's fun to be a mentor. It's fun to see all the different kinds of businesses that I get a chance to talk to the entrepreneurs for. Because they have all kinds of different challenges, ones that I've seen and ones I have not seen. And part of my role, with SCORE is to find resources when it's something outside my skill set, so that we still get good services and good consultation done for the SCORE clients.
Well, thank you so much for the hard work that you put in with us. And I know all of your other clients too, Kevin. We greatly have appreciated your guidance and your expertise as we've moved along in our business. So tell us a little bit. What did you do in your own career before you joined SCORE? And how did you decide to become a SCORE mentor?
Okay, well, I'm actually on probably my third career, which is common of a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of SCORE members for that matter. My first career was as a commercial lawyer. I worked doing trial work and appellate work on business matters and real estate matters and natural resource matters, and I did that for 22 years. And then I skipped out and went back to school and got a degree in computer science and focused on artificial intelligence, and went off to do data analytics and artificial intelligence with the intelligence community and Fortune 500 companies as a consultant, writing everything from ordinary computer code to consulting with CEOs on how they can improve their client retention or bring out new products or deal with all kinds of communication issues. So it was fun. So that was career number two. And then career number three is actually what I'm doing now, which is part-time SCORE consulting and part-time writing software in connection with artificial intelligence and the financial community. And that company is in its birthing process right now, and hopefully will be out in a couple, 3 months. So that's where I have come from. You asked about how I got into SCORE. Well, about 12 or 15 years ago, I came across SCORE when I was starting one of my companies, and I said, I don't know anything at all about this area I'm going into. Let me see if there's somebody out there who would be willing to talk to me. And I called up at that time SCORE and said, hey, you know anybody that's in the financial field that I could talk to, with a few questions? And they said, sure. And they hooked me up with somebody. And I was, a one and done consultation. I just had a bunch of basic questions of, where should I go look for stuff? Where can I find resources? What's a good place to start? And I got those answers, and then I went off on my own, like many SCORE clients, and researched and got started. And so a couple of years ago, I had some time, and I wasn't. One of the things that happens when you retire is that you kind of lose contact with all those people you used to work with, and all the friends that were a part of your prior businesses, and you get kind of lonely. And so SCORE is a good way to go meet the movers and shakers in your community right now. People doing interesting things, exciting things, and everything from social activity or social good kinds of activities to ordinary, for-profit businesses. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll sign up and hopefully meet some interesting people like Landy and Jennifer and many others. Now, in 2 years, I've probably talked with 50 different business owners. Wow. About their businesses, both startups, everything from the very beginning ideas to companies that are midlife, maybe haven't been in business for 10 or 20 years, have new challenges. For example, I've got one company that actually has offshore employees in India that were subject to discrimination, and they needed to move the entire staff to a different country in order to protect the workers and continue to service the clients in the United States. Now, that was a challenge that I had not come across before, and it was exciting to do that and to help out there. And there have been many other interesting situations that have come up, and I love new and interesting and challenging situations which force me as well as my clients to go out and learn new stuff and to become more skilled in all the things that are part of a business journey.
Wow, that is really interesting. I actually was wondering what the most challenging problem is that you've helped with in your SCORE mentoring career. Is that certainly must be close to the top of the list, if not the top.
It is. The most common one, which is challenging for almost every little business, is marketing. How do you get to the customers that you'd like to serve so they know you're out there and that you're competent, and so they need to be able to find you and learn about how you can serve them. And that's a challenge. So many people starting out in business think, well, if I just have a website, that'll do it. And the answer is no, that doesn't do it. You have to bring people to the website. And it's the same thing with social media. If you have an Instagram account and you're promoting your business on Instagram, well, people have got to find out how to find you on Instagram. Or if you've got a bricks and mortar location, people have got to know how to find you on Google when they do a X business near me search on Google. And your site has got to be set up to handle those kinds of things. So they're all kind. Marketing is not what it was even 10 years ago. Marketing is a whole new field. With people doing TikToks, with Instagrams, with Meta, with virtual reality services, with all kinds of wonderful, interesting new approaches to bringing people in, as well as old things like billboards. Mm-hmm. People use billboards very effectively, and all kinds of other media. So marketing is interesting, and hand in hand with marketing is the need to build a process so that you're repetitive in your marketing and you keep up with those people who are not yet ready to buy but have some interest. And so having a calendaring or a process that gets you back to those people on a regular basis so that you're in their face when they want to buy something is so important.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think it's a great segue into my question, is that you do see in many of the small businesses that you are working with that you are seeing that marketing for them is the biggest challenge. So my question for you is there a theme that you see repetitively when you meet with these businesses, whether it is small startups like we are, to the very well seasoned, is there sort of a common theme that you do see with these businesses that you are mentoring?
Or some common advice that you can offer them for that matter that might apply across the board?
Yeah, well, you know, marketing is part of the journey of starting and running a business. And one of the things that's really cool about SCORE is that it has some super kind of business 101 startup classes for businesses. Everything from, well, I've got an idea, how might I move forward from here, through, what's a basic business plan, not getting into a whole lot of numbers, but conceptually, what's going to make up this business? And as a part of that, the marketing of, well, who are my customers going to be? And why is it they want to buy something from me? And what's unique about me that makes me different from my competition? So, that kind of information, that kind of thinking is so important as you start out. And then finding the resources that allow you to learn more, because, when you start a business, you're probably not an expert on, how Google optimizes search. You're probably not an expert on how to, sign up for a billboard contract. You're probably not an expert on, how to find a mailing list. And so there's a whole lot of learning that goes into, almost everybody who starts a business in, well, how am I going to reach out to those people that I want to serve? And there are a whole lot of little different skills there. And it's not something you have to learn all in one huge gulp. You can learn bits and pieces at a time when you need them, and move forward. And so we talk a lot about clients who come in and say, well, I've got, I'm starting my business and my to-do list is now 55 items long. And we say, let's back up. Let's pick the top 3 and let's work on those today or this week. And when you check those off, then you can move on to the next 3. But you have to prioritize. You have to figure out what's important, what you're best at, what you need to do next, and then move through that process. And it all comes together, step by step. And sometimes those steps go very fast, and sometimes they go very slow because of, personal issues or family problems, or just the need to back up for a lot of small businesses and say, I got to have enough cash flow to live on. So I got to go do something that will generate cash flow while I bring my business up, to full operating status.
That's a tough one. It does take a while to get the business not only profitable, that might be year 2, but just even bringing in any income at all that you can use to continue to invest into your business and build it. That's got to be something that you see a lot of across the board with your clients and other clients throughout SCORE.
Absolutely. Funding for starting a business, ideally, you or a relative is affluent enough to pay for, getting things up and rolling, and the basic startup costs that, happen. Well, I got to buy an insurance policy, and I need to have an accountant, and, I need a little bookkeeping system, and, I need to have some flyers, at least I can post on doors, if that's the way I'm going to market, and all those things, add up. So, there are little costs like that. On the other hand, there are a lot of businesses that need serious funding in terms of, well, I gotta, I want to start a custom car garage, and I got to get a location, and I got to get equipment, and I got to finance that somehow, and so, finding the financing to do that can be very, very challenging, and can lead to a bunch of delays in your business plan, because sometimes you just can't find that money from banks or from community lenders or from angels or friends who are willing to invest in you. And it's very common for small businesses to have the hope that, well, gosh, I'm going to have this up and running in 3 months. And the reality is it might be more like 3 years, but you'll get there. You'll get there. But
So
it takes a
speaking of
lot of
funding,
time.
I know the SBA has like clearly a lot of, small business loans and grants. Does SCORE offer grants or loans, or do they help people, secure funding or find funding at all? Is that one of the services
Great,
that SCORE
great
offers?
question. SCORE does not offer funding itself,
Mhm.
but we do help find funding from lenders or from community organizations, or sometimes even from angels. Uh, so, angel is the word for affluent individuals who like to invest in small businesses.
Mm.
And every community has a few of those people that are interested in doing something like that. They're hard to reach, but they're oftentimes very supportive once you get connected to them and can make that connection. Uh, there are many special programs of funds for women-owned businesses and people of color businesses and Native American businesses and veteran businesses, and businesses for particular subject matter like housing or addiction care or health care. So it's sort of amazing, and I continue to learn about a lot of funding opportunities that I never even imagined were out there. And some are for micro enterprises where it might be a loan of $500 or $2,000, and others will have the ability to go up to 50,000 or 100,000. And then there are some SBA's type loans that will go up to several $1 million. And what SBA does, the Small Business Administration doesn't actually give out the money. They
Oh.
go through a regular bank, like Washington Federal or a credit union or whatnot. And so you go to one of those banks that do commercial lending and say, I'm interested in an SBA loan. And what they will tell you is, okay, the SBA has requirements that you have to meet, maybe in terms of your experience or your credit rating or how long you've been in business. And then in addition, the bank itself may have its own additional requirements that you have to meet. And of course, you have to go through an application process and write out your credit history and your business plan and the details of your business in order to get those kinds of loans. The smaller the loan, the easier it is to get them. Um, but sometimes there's a long line waiting for funding from a particular community source.
So you mentioned loans. Have you worked with helping people find grants at all, or non needing to pay back sources of income, or having to, sell a piece of their company, for example, instead of like an investment, more of a grant or a cash infusion? Do you find any of those?
There are some. They come and go. During the pandemic, there were several programs that the government offered that were originally called loans, but in fact they turned into grants if you met certain conditions. Now those have expired, but for nonprofits that are getting started, there are still a bunch of grants that are available. And there are also grants for particular industries. For example, in the defense industry, there are small business investment loans or investment grants that are available to small businesses, and they're set aside certain number of dollars for that purpose, with a lot of different particular projects that the defense industry or the intelligence community is interested in funding. So and likewise, the environmental area has some funding like that. The National Science Foundation has some grants that they will give out. Universities are oftentimes willing to kind of co-fund or co-grant certain kinds of businesses. For example, there's one client that I'm aware of with SCORE, who's building a particular kind of antenna for satellites,
Mhm.
and the defense industry was interested in that, but as well, the commercial telecommunications companies were interested in giving grants for some of that, and the University of Arizona or Arizona State were interested in giving some grants and some free space and some free assistance. So there are a lot of when you dig into what the company is wanting to do in their startup, there are sometimes grants that are available.
Well, I think they all need marketing. So if you happen to hear of any grants for marketing for just keep us in mind, okay, Kevin? We'll take some money and help them out. So, what has been in your SCORE work? What has been the most gratifying, or the thing that's really felt the best that you've experienced in the last couple years as a SCORE mentor? What has really fueled your tank and kind of gets you excited to talk about or think about?
What I love is when someone who really has never been in business before comes along and says, it's time for me to start a business. And, I've got an idea, and the idea sounds like a good one. And the person who's behind that is willing to move forward and really, seriously take the steps to start the business. And you watch them start to do things. I've got a woman client in Salt Lake who's a specialist in mushrooms.
Mhm.
Now
A
she's
mycologist,
building
if I
a
remember the term right. I believe it's called a mycologist, right?
and they're not magic mushrooms. They're food mushrooms, and they're soil rehabilitation remediation mushrooms.
Sure.
And she is, going through the marketing to build both selling mushroom kinds of education and growing kits, and also beginning to build a consulting practice.
Nice.
And she's gone basically from 0 to 50 miles an hour in the direction of 200 miles an hour. And she's going to do some fabulous things. And you just see it happening every time you talk with her, that she's taken some additional steps. The last time I talked with her, she said, "You'll be glad to hear, Kevin, that I've now got a marketing calendar for the next year, and I know what I'm going to be doing each month to add excitement to my marketing and my company and where I want to go." And that is just super to hear about that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
That's huge. That's honestly something that we try to get our clients to work on too. Obviously, we help them with the process, but it's not easy to do at all. So that's a huge step for her.
Yeah, it's so important, and one of the things that's so important in business is persistence and organized persistence, because it's all too easy to just jump on the next
Mhm.
hot topic, and that's not really good enough. You've got to have a process and a commitment to plan out where you're going to go with your marketing, with your hiring, with your product development, with your service development. All those things are just a part of getting good progress in your business building.
So a lot of those take processes. Do you get supplied with various forms or processes or procedures that you from SCORE that you can then use to pass along to your clients? Do you get sort
Yeah,
of a toolkit to be able to use?
there are a few, but most of the time it's a matter of customizing that to your particular business. And all things considered, I go out to Google and do searches for that kind of process oriented templates or the like. And of course, there are many little companies that have started for the purpose of providing templates and processes and the like. For example, if you're doing Instagram marketing, there's a company called Planoly, which allows you to sit down for a couple of hours at the beginning of the month and plan out all of your Instagram posts so that they are automatically posted for you, and you don't have to spend all your brainwaves thinking about that every other day throughout the month. It's super effective. And that is the kind of software templates that are available on lots and lots of different things now.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about those kinds of tools and tips that you can pass along to people. That's a fantastic resource. What else kind of do you keep at your fingertips to be able to pass along to people like that that'll be helpful to anyone listening?
Um,
Not to put you on the spot, sorry.
Well, the fun of working through all the different companies that I'm working with uh, is learning about their different needs and going out and researching and finding that stuff. And so, when I started with SCORE, it was sort of like, well, I know from my experience, here are some things that are out there. And as the companies come along and ask me questions, I go out and do research. And so now I've got, all of a sudden a huge directory on my computer with sets of resources on, all kinds of different subjects from, who can do 3D CADs for manufacturing? What are the steps for contracting with employees or gig workers? What's the process to go through to just get started in Tucson, for example, with a business and get all the licenses you need? What do you need if you want to be a contractor? If you want to work in landscaping or house construction or commercial construction, what are the steps you've got to go through? There's just an awful lot of that kind of background and research that I've been able to accumulate and hand over to people when they come along. So that's, in terms of other software templates,
Or tools. Yeah.
there are many different. I mean, and many people who've come out of larger companies are already aware of Slack or of the Google business sets of products. They're aware of Salesforce. They're aware of constant contact, and Mailchimp and Mailgun and all of the things that help you do what you need to do efficiently. Because certainly you can sit down and write yourself up, do your research, and make yourself a list of people to contact and send out individual emails to those people. But that's not a good use of your time in most instances. There are much more efficient ways to do it. It will cost you something. And if you don't have any money, that's a problem. But if you have a little bit of money, you can get a long ways with those kinds of resources, and just knowing about them and checking them out. And there's no absent hiring an expert to do that kind of work for you. There's nothing you can do except go learn yourself and figure out how to do it. It may not be the thing that you want to do long term, but initially just learning enough to know, how do you do some of these things will help you evaluate where you get the bang for the buck and what's the best use of your time.
Well, that makes me think of the example that you just talked about with our mushroom lady. And so I wanted to ask you if, sticking with my theme of themes, the themes that maybe just, mindset wise or work ethic wise that you see people in terms of growing into successful businesses. Are there characteristics or personality traits that you see as a common thread with those businesses that come to you in those startup phases and then as they grow? We would love to hear if there's a theme there.
I've said for a long time that there are two things that will make anyone successful, and that's enthusiasm and persistence. And persistence in an organized way is what drives really good results in business. I've talked about using calendars and processes and the like, and those become just very, very important to move you forward. And so people who can buckle down and do the preparation work that's needed. For example, in sales, sure, you can take someone who's brand new and say, go find a client, go talk to somebody and get them to sign up for your services. The reality is that good salespeople have learned an awful lot of techniques and a lot of processes in order to do a good job. They know what questions to ask. They know how to guide the conversation. They know how to handle objections. They know how to move forward toward a close. And those processes that you have to learn, you're not born knowing that stuff. It doesn't matter how enthusiastic you are. Once you have good processes supporting you, sales becomes much, much easier. It takes a lot of persistence always, but good skills make the difference in who sells a lot of stuff and who doesn't. And I worked with salespeople when I worked for Teradata, which is a big company similar to Oracle, and we were selling things for $100,000 to $2 million price tags. And the salespeople were extraordinarily skilled in working with, not just one person who was going to make the buying decision, but a whole group of people at a big company who had to make that decision, and navigating through all of that and tracking in paper or on a whiteboard, who reports to who makes which decision, who's the gatekeeper,
who has the
all
hidden
of those.
influence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and the persistence and the enthusiasm for, well, we got a super product, or we got a super service, we got really good people, and now we're able to, really help you out solve the problem that you've got. And I like to say, when it comes to sales, the thing that drives the most closings are an immediate burning problem that needs to be solved right now, because then the buyer wants to get the problem taken care of. It's not just something that's on the back burner, it's something that's on the front burner. And so you have to watch for those opportunities. And if you're in sales, whatever your topic is, it's when some new development occurs or some problem occurs at a company, and you can say, hey, I hear you, I hear your ex-employee who was key just left. Let's talk about what we might be able to help you out with. Stepping in to be the problem solver at the right time makes a huge difference, and that's a part of, again, being organized and being committed to working on your business every day, or at least every week. And sometimes it is every week, and sometimes it's, well, I got to set aside an hour in the morning to make the calls that I don't really enjoy, or I've got to sit down at night after the kids go to bed at 10 o'clock and work on the social media planning for the coming month, even though I'd rather go to sleep. There are times when you just have to do what's got to be done.
Absolutely. So, what advice would you give to people who are listening to this, who may be, newer in their functional medicine business, or honestly any business? Of course, our market, are the people that we talk to and work with are functional medicine providers. But obviously, this advice for National Mentoring Month and Thank a Mentor Day applies to people across the board. So, no matter what business someone is in. And of course, as we always hear, if you're in business, you're in the business of sales, right? Just kind of looping back to what you just said, whether you want to be or not. What kind of advice can you give people as far as how to work with SCORE? Is there any requirements as far as where you are in business, or how much you're making, or how much you know or don't know? What do people do if they want to get this mentorship?
Absolutely no requirements. The way you get into the SCORE system as a client is you go to the score.org website, and there's a spot where it says, find a mentor, or find a webinar, or find a resource. Well, go to find a mentor, and if you want one that's local, you can put in your zip code. If not, you can get one from anywhere in the country. And it's possible, if you have a particular focus, and you want somebody, from, let's say, somebody who builds high-rise buildings, and that's your focus, or somebody who does, orthopedics, and that's your focus, to find somebody who is in that particular field if you need to talk to, that particular kind of person. So anyway, but
programming for AI financial services, maybe. I mean, they might get Kevin.
So you go to score.org, you click on Find a Mentor. You look through some of the profiles that are online about who the mentors are, and you say, I'd like that one. Or just say, I've got this kind of question, assign someone to me. And we love to see anybody particularly somebody who's brand new, who's in business and wants to try to figure stuff out, because that we're just there to help, and to help, whether you're starting with, well, I've got an idea, I wonder if that would be a business, to, I've got 50 employees and, some people just quit and I don't know what to do. Regardless of the size, regardless of the profitability, regardless really whether it's for profit or nonprofit, we're glad to try to help out and deal with the challenges that you've got. It's not like we've got a menu that says, you've got to learn these things before we will talk with you. Rather, it is, tell us where you are, tell us what your challenges, are burning your hands right now, and let's see if we can handle some of those things. What are you losing sleep over? What's not working? What kind of conflicts are going on in your business? What is it you don't know about? Is it that you don't know how to order, equipment from offshore? Well, let's find a resource that can work through that with you, whatever it is. And so it's really wide open, and the kinds of clients we have reflect that wide openness, because it really will be everything from someone who says, well, I just left my job, I just retired, I want to think about starting a business. I've never been in business. Do you have just some basic business info? Or, I've got a little nonprofit that is running, but we're having terrible time getting people to come to our events. What do we need to do? To, all kinds of different questions that come up. Where do I find an accountant? Where do I find an attorney? Where do I find an HR person? Where do how do I find somebody to do gig work for me? What's the tax situation on employees? When do I have to file TPT tax in Arizona? All those kinds of questions we're glad to work with.
So is there anything, and this will be my last question, is there anything that SCORE can't help with? Are there any limitations to the help that you can provide?
There are. The two main limits are, we can't help with anything that's illegal, which includes marijuana at this point.
Okay. Sure.
And CBD businesses. And we can't help with businesses that are offshore. So if you're, for example, a Mexican citizen in the U.S. Starting a business in Mexico, we can't help you. If you're starting a business in the U.S., we can. So those are really the only two limitations that I've ever run into.
And Landy, any questions or thoughts from you as we get ready to wrap this up then?
I did just have one more question as far as how the pairing process goes, because I believe, we obviously filled out the form, and we didn't request I don't remember us requesting like a specific person. I just remember putting in our questions.
Yeah.
So then
and our
when
location,
SCORE gets,
in
our
Tucson,
location.
we decided we'd like to work with a local person to Tucson. So yeah.
So then when SCORE receives that information, how do they sort of, sift through those questions? And then with all of these, 30,000 plus SCORE mentors, like how do they whittle that down? Say, if I didn't put Tucson, that's the whole United States, right? So how do they sort of filter that for the matching process?
Well, there's an opportunity to ask for, a mentor that has a particular background. But what you did is really the more common situation, that someone says, well, I don't know who I need to talk to. I just need to talk to somebody who's knowledgeable. And what happens is, we've got one paid employee who is kind of our intake person. And she looks through what the question is and says, well, okay, here in Tucson, we've got, let's say 30 mentors. And in Phoenix, we've got another 70 that we could call on as well. And, kind of what's the workload of everybody right now? And who would this be potentially a good fit for? And because I've got a legal background, I get a lot of legal questions. And because I've got a technology background, I get a lot of technology questions. If somebody comes in and says, well, I want to start a restaurant, I will say, I don't know anything about restaurants. You need to find, and I'll tell the intake person, you need to find someone else to work with this client. And so I can turn down, and sometimes I do turn down clients for a variety of reasons, usually because it's totally out of any experience I've ever had. And that happens with manufacturing. I'm a little familiar with patents, but when somebody says, okay, now I've got my patent, I want to manufacture something, I will say, let's find you a manufacturing mentor because I'm not it.
Sure.
And that's kind of the way it goes. So we've got a good intake person who tries to match the question up with the skills of the mentor, and balance loads at the same time. And so it works out. And we always say, if we've got a personality conflict or a bad fit, let's move on to somebody else. Let's find you somebody you like to work with.
Does every office across the country have one of these coordinator matcher people?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there are maybe 300 chapters across the country. Arizona has 3 chapters, Southern and Northern and Central. And California has God knows how many. So, Minnesota probably has, 2 or 3 or 4,
Sure.
and
Yeah, I think
likewise
there are
everywhere.
for folks who don't know, Landy and our business are in Tucson. So is Kevin in the Tucson area. I'm up here in Minnesota, the northerner of the bunch. So yes, I've worked with actually a Minnesota score office or two along my own entrepreneurial road, and they've always been wonderful to work with.
Oh, super, super. Yeah, and the volunteers, and we're always looking for more volunteers to help with mentoring or to give webinars on particular technical topics or legal topics or areas of expertise. Google, for example, has partnered with SCORE and provides a whole bunch of super webinars on how to use Google with business. And some of the banks do likewise, and some of the HR companies, I believe, do likewise. But we're always looking for new mentors and anyone who's got some experience in business at a senior level. Whether they owned it or ran it or were a department chairman or whatnot. We'd love to have that person come and be interviewed to be a mentor. And then start talking to exciting new businesses that are starting up.
And I just want to double check all those webinars and resources you were talking about completely free of charge, right?
They are almost all free
Okay.
of charge. Occasionally, one will be for $10 or $20 or $50. So the most expensive one I've ever come across was $50, and it was, I believe, 2 full half days. So some of them are an hour, and some of them are a couple day style webinars.
Wonderful. Great. And if you've mentioned that people do are invited to be able to give webinars on certain topics, must you be a SCORE mentor already in order to give a webinar on a particular area of expertise for SCORE?
I don't know the answer to that, really. I mean, there are people who join SCORE just so they can give webinars. SCORE is not a place to promote your business.
Right.
It's a place to pass along your knowledge.
Yeah.
And so there's, if what you want to do is promote your business through a webinar, beyond obviously saying, well, I run X business and we're always looking for customers. But if you go beyond that, that's inappropriate. But outsiders, will come to SCORE and say, for example, one of the banks in town, I believe, has just volunteered to say, we'd like to give some seminars on succession planning for businesses. What happens when you need to get out of your business? And we'll provide speakers. And we'll provide a place, and we'll even pay SCORE for the promotional expense of letting everybody know about this webinar.
Sure.
And the people giving that webinar will not be a SCORE volunteer. They'll be a bank employee. But it's an appropriate topic that's needed by businesses, and so SCORE will say, we're glad to do that. And SCORE partners in Tucson with the Pima County Public Library and with a number the Women's Business Center and with Startup Tucson and with a whole bunch of local organizations, so that we have sponsorship by multiple organizations, which gets more people to know about the opportunities and the knowledge that can be passed along and learned.
Wonderful. Such fantastic information, and what a wonderful organization that we are very, very glad to be able to work with and receive wisdom and information from. We're so happy to work with you, Kevin. And so on National Thank Your Mentor Day, we thank you very much for the
Well,
work that you do with us and others.
and I want to thank Root Cause Marketing and both of you for being wonderful clients and lots of fun to work with. So people like you is what makes it fun to be a mentor.
Thank you so much. We're delighted to see you.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to our next mentoring session. And thanks for sharing all of the knowledge and wisdom that you've imparted today and all the other days that you do your work.
Okay. Have a good afternoon. Take care.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye.
Bye-bye.